Hello and welcome to a new United podcast series, Men Behind the Stats. If you're new around here, please do drop a sub, be much appreciated, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at United Podcast, the same as the YouTube channel name. So, the opinion for today's episode is that Jack Grealish would be a better signing for Manchester United than Donny van de Beek. Just a quick reminder, if you're watching this, you've got an opinion you want to see featured, please do get in touch with us, DM us on Instagram or Twitter at United Podcast, just like the channel name. So, what we're going to look at today are the relative strengths and weaknesses of Van de Beek versus Jack Grealish. We're then going to look at their defensive game in terms of their work rate and their overall contribution in comparison with the rest of the United midfield. We're going to look at their offensive game after that, again in comparison with the rest of the midfield. And finally, we'll touch on their play styles and look at how that can influence who United should sign. So, taking a look at this first radar here, what we can see is a comparison between Van de Beek and Jack Grealish in many different areas of their game. Obviously, you've got Van de Beek in the blue and Grealish in the red. And what's important to look at here, as with all radars that I've made, is the difference between the stats rather than the absolute values. One thing to note is that due to availability of data, for Van de Beek I've had to use the last 2 seasons worth of European competition rather than his league games to get the stats, as the detailed stats weren't available for the Eredivisie. So for Van de Beek's stats, it comes from the Champions League, Ajax's great run in 18-19, and the current season's Champions League and Europa League stats up to the present day. So analysing the radar, the first thing to say is that the goals and assists seem pretty even between Van de Beek and Grealish. What you would say though is that on the expected goals and assists front, Van de Beek seems to be doing slightly better, suggesting that he possibly gets into better positions and is maybe more of a direct goal threat. Moving further round clockwise into the passing section, you can see that Jack Grealish is a better passer. He's better at creating opportunities for his teammates. He's got more key passes, which are passes directly leading to a shot, more passes into the penalty area, and more shot and goal creating actions. Going beyond this, I think in the next section it shows that Van de Beek is a slightly better decision maker. He's got slightly more expected goals per shot, so he makes better decisions about when to shoot. Dribble success, Jack Grealish is in fact better, but Van de Beek gets dispossessed or miscontrols the ball quite a lot less per 90 minutes. In terms of decision making, there's not too much to choose between them. Then moving finally round to the defensive section, Van de Beek clearly has the edge here. All of these stats have been possession adjusted, so the defensive actions, dribble past and the pressures, because clearly when you've got the ball, you can't be doing any of those things, so it makes sense to adjust for possession so that you can make a better comparison. Overall, what I think this radar shows is that there's not too much to choose between them. Yes, Jack Grealish may seem like a better passer, but off the ball, Donny van de Beek's defensive effort seems to be better. Now, having directly looked at the two of them in comparison, we'll now look at how they compare to the current United squad. So we'll move on to their defensive contributions. So this graph is the possession adjusted defensive contributions. So as I just mentioned, all the stats are adjusted for possession, and it's all per 90 minutes. Going up the graph, you've got the total defensive actions attempted, so that's tackles, clearances, blocks, interceptions. And along the bottom, you've got the pressures attempted, so that's a measure of work rate, how much they get up in the opposition's face. So the first thing to say, obviously, looking at the right-hand side of that graph, Fred, work rate off the ball is absolutely incredible. Bruno comes out pretty well from the pressure stat as well. Clearly he's working very hard off the ball. Looking at where Grealish and Van de Beek are, they're fairly low on the defensive actions, which will have implications for selection. If United were to sign one of Van de Beek or Grealish, possibly playing them with Pogba and Bruno wouldn't be ideal, because you'd need really one of McTominay, Matic or Fred in there to get the defensive contributions up. Alternatively, looking at signing a defensive midfielder who covers a lot of ground, puts in a lot of challenges, like Wilfred and Ndidi, could be the perfect sort of balance for the other players to excel. That said, it is worth remembering that with Grealish moving to a better team, from Aston Villa, who are in relegation trouble, to Manchester United, maybe since he's relying on less in attack, he'll be able to contribute more defensively, so his work rate defensively could well improve. Now, having looked at the defensive contribution of Jack Grealish and Donny van de Beek in comparison with the current Manchester United midfield, let's look at their attacking contribution. So, going up the graph, we've got expected goals and assists. As you'll know if you've seen previous videos, I use expected values because it's a better marker of what positions the players are getting into, and it negates the impact of having a better or worse finisher playing up front in your team. So on expected assists, the example I use is that if you've got a winger who keeps getting in really good balls to the penalty spot, and you've got a striker that continually misses the chances, their assist value would be a lot lower than you'd expect, but the expected assist value wouldn't be impacted. So that's why I'm using expected values going up the graph. Then going along the bottom of the graph, we've got the passes into penalty area, which I like as a metric of creativity because it's something that United are perceived to have struggled with. So what you can see straight away is that Van de Beek and Jack Grealish are both a massive improvement in terms of offensive contribution on Fred, McTominay and Matic. As we suggested from the radar earlier, Van de Beek clearly has a fantastic goal and assist contribution. Look how high up he is on that graph. So that suggests he's getting into good positions and he's a direct goal threat. Jack Grealish, on the other hand, he's a bit lower down in the expected goals and assists, but he's still higher than Pogba and nearly as high as Bruno, so he's pretty good there. But his passes into the penalty area, he's got a lot more of those. So as we suggested again on the radar, he's a lot more creative and seems to be a better passer. He seems better at creating chances for his teammates. So the next question that we've got to answer with regard to Jack Grealish and Donny van de Beek is who complements the existing Manchester United midfield the best? So now, reflecting on the current squad, since we want someone to complement what we've already got two fantastic playmakers in Pogba and Bruno. They're brilliant passers of the ball, very good at creating chances for teammates. What United don't have so much is a lack of goal threat from midfield runners. So many times in a lot of games we've seen situations this season where the attackers are all static and there's no runs in behind the defence. And sometimes when the attackers aren't able to provide that, what can be really useful in terms of breaking down a deep defence is midfield runners. Midfielders that are prepared to break the defensive line, get in behind and try and beat the offside trap. Now, something else to note with the current squad is that there's a lot of players who like to drift over to the left-hand side. Obviously Rashford playing on the left wing, but Martial prefers the left. Pogba seems to prefer coming to the left. So there's a lot of players already who are drifting towards that side. So in terms of lateral balance, it might be useful to have someone who's more comfortable on the right-hand side as well. So if we now proceed to analyse the play styles of Van de Beek and Jack Grealish, we can ascertain who would be the better signing for Manchester United. So as you'll know if you watched the Van de Beek video, if you haven't it'll be linked up the top, is that Van de Beek is out of the Ajax Academy. Now I'm a massive fan of the Ajax Academy because of the legacy of total football, meaning that players can play pretty much everywhere on the pitch. So Van de Beek is comfortable on the right hand side, left hand side, he'll be comfortable playing out of defence, comfortable in the opposing third, comfortable in the corner trying to get the ball into the penalty area. You get the point, Van de Beek is very comfortable everywhere on the pitch. Looking further at his game, he's very, very good at making direct runs in behind as a goal threat. He can provide that extra spark from midfield that United sometimes need. He can be a target for passes from Pogba and Bruno Fernandes as much as he's the one making the passes himself. In contrast, Grealish has a clear preference for drifting over to the left-hand side rather than being equally comfortable everywhere on the pitch. My main concern with Jack Grealish is a tactical one. Since he likes to drift over to the left and he gets in the inside spaces, I think that would drag an extra defender towards that area, which is fine, but it would take away some of the space that Marcus Rashford's got to operate in. So in actual fact, potentially getting Jack Grealish there could take away from the attacking prowess of Marcus Rashford, which is something we really don't want to be doing at United. You could say at the moment that when Pogba's fit, he'll take up that space. But Pogba seems to play a bit deeper, he plays a bit wider sometimes as well. He's got great link-up and he's got that understanding with Rashford already. So he doesn't seem to be taking away space from Rashford. However, with Grealish, obviously the new player takes time to bed in. So I think for a while, with seeing Grealish start there, we could have a problem in terms of him taking away from some of Marcus Rashford's attacking exploits. Also, and this is a bit less of a concern, Grealish is a passer type as we've established. And with Pogba and Bruno already, we've got passer types in the midfield. So whilst depth is always good, I think it would be better to sign Van de Beek, who's more balanced, more well-rounded, and actually complements the existing midfield better. So, to summarise the video, firstly, both Jack Grealish and Donny van de Beek are fantastic options. They're both very well-rounded and got a great all-round game. In the rest of the video, we've shown that Van de Beek has probably a slight defensive edge, whilst Jack Grealish is a better passer in possession of the ball. Again, if you've seen the previous video, you'll know that Van de Beek, you will have seen that picture of Van de Beek getting in behind the defensive line, beating the offside trap, and that is something that the current squad seems to lack. Midfield runners who are willing to break the defensive line, get in behind, play essentially as a second striker, but be a direct goal threat in and of themselves. Now, in that respect, I think Van de Beek would be the better signing because he complements the existing squad better and provides something that we don't have. Now, Jack Grealish would be a great signing as well, but for me, Donny van de Beek has the edge. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please do smash the like button. Please do subscribe and send in any opinions you've got for future videos to @UnitedPodcast on Twitter or Instagram. Finally, if you've enjoyed it, please do try and share it to help us grow our channel, and hopefully we'll have more content for you very soon.